welcome to Revelation, the new conscious commentary on current affairs show from SourceTV. And this week we are reflecting on the influence of yesterday's new moon and solar eclipse. We'll be talking about fear, propaganda, and what we can believe anymore. And we'll also be delighting in last night's Oscars. But first, we're going to discuss last Friday's controversial mass witchcraft ritual to bind Donald Trump. Now, David, amongst your many other areas of expertise, I know you were ordained as a witch in your 20s. Mm-hmm. So please, can you start off by telling us, was all the controversy justified?
Well, I don't know whether or not the controversy is justified, but I think the ritual itself was a great mistake for a few reasons. One is, in other kind of hi-fi system, if you turn the treble up, you inadvertently turn bass down. If you turn the bass up, you inadvertently turn the treble down. So if someone's distressed, you can increase their relaxation, or you can focus on reducing their anxiety. So you can change something either by kind of, what they were trying to do was entrap him, rather than send more light to the situation, so that then by virtue of the fact that things are being healed, then they would naturally start to flow down more kinder, compassionate routes. So rather than kind of lock him up and put him in a dungeon, which always makes something angry, because if you repress something, it's going to fly out later on, but it's going to be more extreme. So that was one part of the idea of binding someone, I think, is a form of, if you like, esoteric enslavement, which is not the kind of compassionate, kind witchcraft that I was taught. But there's another thing as well. There's an adage in witchcraft, which is, if you tell, it breaks the spell. And the reason for that is that if you announce that you're going to do some kind of magical ritual, not necessarily a healing, I think if you're sending healing from yourself, the more people join in, the better. But if you're invoking powers from external sources, i.e. gods and goddesses, to assist you in your bidding, then the mere announcement of that means that people will form an opinion about it. And I was taught in my very early days that it's very important that witchcraft is a mystery tradition. Because if somebody knows you're going to do ABC at a certain time, then they're going to, even if they have an opinion which is kind of on your side, as it were, their opinion astrally latches onto what you're doing. And it can create a kind of psychic interference, a bit like a taxi going past an old FM radio, you know? And so these people announcing what they were going to do, by definition, was going to mean that anyone who is antagonistic towards the idea, whether that's politically or from a religious perspective, all of their opinions and all of their emotions were just going to fly towards it, which would undo the verity of it anyway. You know, so I don't know where these people did their training, or even if they've done any kind of considered thought in what they're doing. But as far as I was concerned, they completely scuppered the power of it by announcing it in the first place. So, yeah, it's a silly thing to do, really silly thing to do.
Out of interest, did anyone participate in that, or did anyone know anyone who participated, or was it mainly an American thing?
I was aware that it was happening. Somebody said once, you can't con an honest man. And by exactly the same token, those who curse are subject to curses. You create, by doing this, you create a reality that involves the kind of shortcut and breakages that you're invoking. So for me, the idea of entrapping anybody, you know, whether it is the most stupid man on the planet or whether it's somebody else, is anathema. You know, what is most powerful is letting things go where they're going to go. Indeed, yeah, it's like a negated command in linguistics. You know, when you say don't think of a blue dog with yellow stripes, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. Exactly. And it's what you're saying about astral interference. Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
I was taught that magic is like if you think of the water will always flow to the ocean. You can't stop that. If you try and stop it, you block it and then you dam it. And that's when problems start. But good magic isn't trying to stop the river, it's directing its flow.
Exactly.
And you know, but it's not trying to stop it.
Paul,
Yes,
do
there
you
was.
want to come on? Yes, because I know you're
Yeah.
in a cafe in Glastonbury, so there's a lot of background noise. I just unmuted you.
Yes. Yeah. No, I wanted to just say that I absolutely spot on, David. That everything you said, and the only word that didn't come up for me was karma with it, and of course, there's now the discussion come that if you because I also have links in early days with witchcraft through Alexander's, and so any cursing, any interference with anybody's free will is going to have karmic consequences. So in the first place, this whole thing within the witches of learning to curse and so on, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Anything you do to anybody else, you're doing to yourself. So why would you want to bind yourself? So all these people are doing is binding themselves. Whether and exactly as David said, by if it isn't secret, you allow everybody to have their thought forms interfering with what you're doing. So of course it's absurd. But what it does bring out is that there are people with very little knowledge, true knowledge and understanding, playing silly games and bringing witchcraft into disrepute, which is fairly easy to do.
Well, no, yeah, I was going to mention that as well, that the kind of the Christian right reaction to this has kind of put back, as far as American witchcraft is concerned, the acceptability of it culturally, for by at least a decade. You know, I know a wonderful priestess whose job is a social worker, and she's also a part-time chaplain in prisons, and she goes into prisons and you know, is a kind of a witchcraft chaplain for pagan prison inmates. And that's incredibly progressive that this society does that, you know, because it means that there's an institution that's recognizing that paganism is a bona fide religion. And stuff like this Disneyfies it, you know.
Michael, let's come to you, because you were involved in some way in that, and you do move in these circles of kind of
I mean, I know who these people are. These are kind of quite famous witches in San Francisco, California.
Okay.
Very kind of flamboyant people, very kind of, you know, it's all about show business. And there's certain danger in New Age circles of, like, these people want to be seen, to be on stage, to be getting a lot of public recognition. So it's kind of like the narcissistic element also applies to these people with magical intentions.
They're the same ones who put Hillary Clinton into the White House, aren't they?
Indeed. So there's a kind of tendency with this Pisces eclipse towards sort of divine deception, glamour, illusion, a sense of kind of losing the plot. But it's given a lot of, you know, fame and recognition to a certain group of witches in California, and they're loving all that. But yeah, they themselves have kind of taken witchcraft from its Anglo-Saxon roots, and it's all been revived in America secondhand. I mean, they sort of would be so jealous of people now living in Glastonbury. And we're now taking much inspiration from those people. So we're now like third-hand witches almost. So I'd say go back to the source, go back to the real teachers of karma and white magic and true healing. And this Pisces new moon is about restoring the old traditions, getting back to a sense of integrity, karma, and what, you know, true witchcraft is, which is not about show business and glamour and trying to be kind of big in Hollywood, which we can talk about, I'm sure, later on what that is about.
Yeah,
Michael, Michael, can I just ask you then, let's just move on to yesterday's new moon solar eclipse, because obviously that solar eclipse, that was part of the timing over that spell, in that it was essentially the sun going into darkness and the kind of masculine energy being snuffed out momentarily.
Indeed. Well, there's that hope of the sort of wild chaos will somehow be unleashed. But yeah, Donald Trump is quite a powerful spirit, and these sort of powerful overlords, they get stronger the more you sort of project negativity onto them. I mean, Donald Trump is going to get a lot stronger from this. There are not many potent, sorcerers around who would really ever challenge these people in power. So it really is a huge, massive waste of time. But it's kind of part of this Piscean Neptune energy. Most of it is smoke and mirrors. It's glamour. It's getting attention for people who want to be noticed in the magical world. Okay, and so much of the New Age, as we know, is about attracting attention. And the real kind of light workers are doing it all in secret and putting in great intentions to heal the world. So Pisces New Moon is about healing the emotions, the sacred waters. It's about, getting in touch with the goddess. It's about deep archetypes of spiritual growth, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, the divine marriage. That's what it's really all about. But this kind of glamour and black magic links into the other side of Pisces, which is this sense of dissolution, intoxication, being under the spell of kind of quick fixes in magic and trying to get a lot of fame and glory for oneself. And also it's about divine sabotage. So last night we had the Oscars, complete, utter chaos. And this is all part of their sort of heavenly laughter. The gods and spirits laugh at us because we try and get things to work, to get things straight. But actually spirit works through chaos. Spirit works through us not knowing what we're doing, okay? So I would say this whole Pisces New Moon is affirming the feminine, the emotional, the subconscious. It's also saying tolerate one's mistakes, getting on the wrong plane, being in the wrong place, software collapsing. It's all part of this divine flow. Worship feminine chaos, but don't try and make any capital out of it.
Okay. Well, we're talking about the Oscars. Richard, let's come to you and give us your... I didn't watch it, I didn't stay up, but I woke up very disappointed that La La Land had not actually won.
Yeah, no, I didn't stay up either. I'm no good at dead of night. But it's very interesting because we get the Oscars we deserve in the same way we get the rulers we deserve. And in a sense, the monsters of the 21st century are Hollywood monsters. So we get Lex Luthor in the case of Donald Trump, and we get one of those Marvel super villains like Dr. Octopus in the case of Osama bin Laden, for instance. So I find the Oscars very interesting in terms of a reflection of where we're at. So if you take it, for instance, you were referring to the eclipse and the change of moons. From my standpoint, it's a tiger rabbit cusp, a tiger rabbit cusp. Interestingly, Casey Affleck sits on the tiger rabbit cusp. So he has a tiger day and a rabbit, not quite on the cusp, he has a tiger day and a rabbit year. But what I noticed with the Oscars, that they show a certain development. I mean, Casey Affleck wins Best Actor, which means he's untouched by the whispers of misbehavior, not unlike some of Donald Trump's behavior. So it means we haven't entirely learned that. And that the establishment in the form of Matt Damon and his big brother, Casey Affleck's big brother, have protected him from that. So the American liberal establishment has not learned, is what that tends to imply. Similarly, the Rooster year is a year of, among other things, LGBTQ. So Moonlight is a very interesting winner. But I think, referring to the particular instance you're talking about, with Warren Beatty reading out the wrong film, one of my daughters said to me, have Bonnie and Clyde been involved in any other big votes this year? There is a kind of, as I think Michael was saying, the universe laughing at us. Warren Beatty is an establishment man with a reputation for, just to be fair, a very large ego. It's very interesting that it should be him who made the error. So there is this kind of
technically Faye Dunaway, actually, wasn't it? Because he hesitated and she was the one who blurted it.
Yeah, I remember that movie. It was a good movie. But I think the awards happening at the time of an eclipse is very interesting. And we've got I mean, no one could say the Oscars are not black this year, for instance, with Viola Davis and Mahershala Ali and so on and so forth. But as I say, they reflect the times. And what we've got is a kind of a waking up, but not much of one, with the LGBTQ recognition in Moonlight, which is a lovely movie, I think. And the important thing about it is it makes these nice gay guys just normal, nice blokes. There is no kind of feminization. There's no, you know, camping. There is no kind of a judgment. It's just these guys happen to have this particular sexual preference. And that is a real maturing for the Oscars, a real maturing for all of us, for America. So there is that. And perhaps you might say, particularly with a movie called Moonlight, that the eclipse has some kind of an influence on that. The upset with La La Land, which I know that you were attached to, Rachel. La La Land is escapist, and in times of chaos, we tend to go to escapist movies. If you look at the Oscars, you know, the big musicals are, you know, in the Cold War, aren't they? Early in the Cold War, for instance. But with La La Land, it's interesting because it's like a conscious choice has been made to move away from escapism into something that kind of addresses the problems of the day. So as a metaphor, the Oscars are suggesting we're learning something, but we're learning it a bit bloody slowly. So,
yeah, well, can I just say, one of the things about Neptune, we were talking about Pisces, Neptune's associated with Pisces, is one of Neptune's kind of ways of manifesting is fog. And whenever fog appears, sirens appear on rocks to draw us to our doom. And then we kind of drown in the water and maybe enter Neptune's golden palace under the sea and find nirvana at the end of it. So there's always, whenever there's anything Piscean going on, there's the potential, not just for the chaotic storms, but for utter complete confusion. And then some kind of calamity, which then ultimately leads to our redemption, you know.
Yeah.
But getting that redemption point is painful. And a lot of people try and escape pain. Yes.
Beverley, let's bring you on the call, because I know that you do rituals every new moon and full moon. So was yesterday's especially powerful for you?
Yes, it was. We even had a bit of conflict within the portal we set up. But I want to start, I got a quote this morning. You drown not by falling into a river, but by staying submerged in it. Of course, that's Paulo Coelho. Do I pronounce that right? I'll repeat that. You drown not by falling into a river, but by staying submerged in it. Pisces is the last. We have the death. We have the ending. We have the beginning. What do we really need to put a death to or to end? What do we really need to complete? So one of the exercises that came through when we created the portal for the eclipse yesterday was we had 3 circles of crystals in a circle with a flower in the middle. And then we had a 4th. So we had 3 for ascension, making manifest what you want on earth. So you have the divine intention, and then you have the 3 to bring that down with the 4 to manifest, the practical manifestation. And what we have is chaos. Chaos within the mind, chaos by looking at other people and blaming them for our mistakes, blaming them for making us angry, blaming them for telling us what to do. Don't tell me what to do. I'm not your slave. Don't tell me what to do. You can't. And it's like, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean it that way. So the miscommunication, the misunderstanding, the chaos and the confusion and the anger that's within all of us. Of course, we can say it's Donald Trump. We can blame other people, blame the witches. What's important is what is inside you personally in your own particular life, that you come and manifest this in a sacred space, in your life, in your relationship. What is the pattern? Again, we talk about the karmic pattern and our karmic relationships. So when we look at this fabulous new moon and we look at the eclipse and we see it either reality or through the telescopes that went on live on Facebook and everywhere else, we see, is the moon eating the sun, or is the sun eating the moon? So which viewpoint is there? Which is the perfect viewpoint? And is this an illusion or is it real? And what is life? Life is the reality of where we are right now. We can want an illusion. Oh, I really wish I had that car or that this or that this. That's your wish. The reality is you're jealous, you're vindictive, you're nasty. Your mind is full of thoughts of hatred towards other people. You're putting curses, or you can never be as good as me. I'm going to do this so I can be better than you. So this concept of being better, and yet we have the water, the ocean. The ocean is so vast. Are you able to put that anger into the ocean and let that anger be absorbed and turn that poison into medicine? Piscean energy is water. Emotions, we clean ourselves with water. We brush our teeth. What else? What else do you do? We need water in our body. The power of water is so important. However, within all that emotional turmoil, we look at the moon and we look at life, because you see, in reality, we can't control the moon or the earth. We think we can. We are little compared to the greater picture. So of course we have the Oscars. Of course we have everybody saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because I'm important and my ego is bigger than yours and I'm brilliant and blah, blah, blah. And this announcement is very important to be seen, because I don't feel seen, I don't feel recognized, nobody values me, I haven't got my Oscar, they've got my Oscar, why haven't I got my Oscar? So that concept within this vibrational energy of this new moon in Pisces, this eclipse, you know, this powerhouse is important if you choose to make it important. And yet it's not important if you choose not to make it important.
So this kind of moves into the topic that I know that Paul and Stephanie wanted to talk about, which is the whole thing of propaganda and fear and what to believe anymore, because everyone has now, particularly now Trump has alienated so many media outlets. It's very difficult, even with things that you might once have trusted, like BBC, for example, to not have that sort of spin on things. So let's come to Paul and Stephanie on this whole reaction against kind of unfolding media and propaganda. Paul, talk to us about propaganda.
Yes, well, when we talked briefly this morning and you asked about what would I like to talk about today, and what came up for me strongly is here you are creating a new format where we're all free to say exactly what we like. We're not being paid to say anything. You, as the editor, can do what you can censor it if you like. But nevertheless, there's the opportunity now through these amazing plethora of media to spread the word of truth, beauty, compassion, and to have those qualities as the basis and the foundation of media. That's not what we see so much out in the world, which is why we're choosing to have all, you know, we're not enjoying what we're reading in the newspapers. We know a lot of it is propaganda. We know a lot of it is really untrue. And even the things that we are being presented as facts, it brings to mind the Greek philosopher who said, you know, it's all very well telling me this, but is it, do you really know it's true? Is it a rumor, or do you really know it's true? And even then, is it really helpful? Isn't it just hurtful to someone? Are you really making the world better by sharing this, even if it's a fact? So here we are bombarded, and of course enough bombardment will affect our minds. And as we know, you could say a large part of the population of the Western world is sat in front of a box or in front of a telephone screen and being brainwashed to think and act in certain ways. So you can't fight anything successfully. There's nothing, in my view, we don't change things by fixing them. We change them by doing what we really love and want to do. And here you are creating this format where as this grows and as this spreads through, and we've already got light workers invading YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, and so on. And this to me is the way that we're going to spread the light, is take over media. And one thing I would like to share with you here is that a number of years ago, I was approached by a group that's a sort of semi-secret, but I mean, I don't know who many of them are, but it's encouraged me ever since, is that they say that they control a lot of the world media, and that when there's a time of chaos, when people are encouraged to go into fear, that they're looking for mouthpieces, people like me, to be able to share a message. And it's the message that we know, I share it with you now. The message is, get together in the group of your tribe or your families and be self-sufficient, grow your own food, make sure you have your health care and your education, and then look after yourselves. And if anybody comes from outside and says, we're the authority and we're going to tell you what to do, tell them to go away politely as you can. And so it's obvious from an ecological point of view that we haven't got any choice but to go to sustainability and to look after the earth and grow our own food and do everything locally. If we don't do that, we're going to carry on destroying the planet. And so here we've got, I'm very encouraged because I think there are a lot of actors in the established media world who are ready to change the message. So it's not just about alternative media like yourself and YouTube and so many channels and new light worker channels, but in fact in the overground world, in the established media, there are a lot of people biding their time, waiting for the time when really it's time just to say, look guys, it's time to wake up, let's do it a different way. We've got all the foundation for creating the Garden of Eden here. Most of it is the Garden of Eden, it just needs a few tweaks. And so media can do that. Media, we're so connected now that once that message, that clear message comes through, that, okay, we've done unconsciousness, and we've done ego, and we've done all that, and now it's time to get together and have a party, and to just drop all these things that are destroying the party for everybody. And I think we're getting closer and closer. There are more and more voices, and I'm sure, like many of you, start to disregard the media and to spend more energy on alternative media, like you're doing, Rachel. So yes, that's what I wanted to say today.
Thank you, Paul. And Stephanie, let's come to you, because I know that you were looking at the whole Brexit thing in the light of Tony Blair and this whole fear culture that we're going into. Of that there is a lot of fear in all of this, isn't there? Whether it's fear of witchcraft, fear of Trump, fear of Brexit, you know, and one wonders whether a lot of this fear is being fed into the system kind of to disempower us through lowering our vibration and taking us out of that positive, productive place into this reactive, fear-based adrenaline place.
Well, we have to remember that that fear itself has many guises. It comes in lots of trickery. The mind is very clever, but it's also very stupid. It works on repetition. It's like a small child. It needs to be pulled back to account very often. And this whole basis of fear actually even stems from a place of just being sad, just being unhappy, just feeling out of love or out of sync. I mean, most of the people on the planet are good, hard-working people. They were taught from a very early age, if they were good, if they were honest, if they lived a good life, they'd get their happily ever after. But for most people, it's very clear to see that they haven't received that yet. And they're still looking outwardly for the world to give them payback for their efforts and everything that they feel that they're putting into it. They're kind of unaware that they're creating it themselves. And when you look at Brexit, when you look at Trump, when you look at all the big things going on in the world right now, the basis of the elections and the outcomes of all of that was people generally having had enough of what's going on. So all of a sudden they feel that they have a voice and there's something they can do. But they're kind of unaware that they're also creating the problem because they're still looking outwardly for the world, for the government, for other people to fix them. They're probably even looking at their partners and the people they love, feeling not loved enough because they don't realize yet they have to be the love to receive the love. So here's the thing. Fear is coming in many, many guises. And even this thing with witchcraft, if you look at it, they might have thought they were doing a good thing, but it was fear-based. It's fear-based. They're wanting to bind Donald Trump to stop him doing all the things that they feel he shouldn't be doing. But if you look at Donald Trump, he's just a man. He may be asleep and very earthbound on some levels of people's opinions, but he's a fresh broom. He isn't unknown. Yes, he's going to create havoc and turmoil. He's in his power and he wants to feel power. And anybody who threatens that is going to kick them out the door. He wants to absolutely control. But the only way to do that is by people who are more in their higher self, working on behalf of God and the universe and the planet light workers, is for them to hold the space. And isn't that what we have been doing? Because people that are asleep, it doesn't matter if you're a light worker, it doesn't matter if you're into witchcraft, white or dark. To someone who's asleep, all of this stuff that we speak of is terrifying because they don't understand it. And that's why quite a lot of people are asleep, because even in my relationship, you know, when my husband was alive, it would have been far easier for me to say, okay, you've won, I'll step back, I won't continue down this path of investigation. And that's why we're only as far forward as we are, because it's all based on fear. So the thing is that nothing can stay the same. The very nature of life is teaching us that. God teaches us that. Not God, hallelujah, you praise the Lord, someone sitting on the throne, but life itself that we're part of, that communicates with us every day. We've been asking for help, but we can never determine how that help's going to come in. And very often, you know, if you look at a business that's crumbling, they will bring somebody in from the corporate world, somebody to completely shake up, pull everything apart, rip it apart, and then rebuild. So isn't that what Donald Trump's doing? Isn't that what Brexit's doing? Yes, it's not what we would have chosen on a lovely sunny day had all our dreams come true, but it's where we are, it's what we're left with. So rather than be in the fear, we have to look at the bigger picture and say, okay, so what is this actually doing? And it's actually being able to maintain the space. And remembering that people that are asleep are scared of the whole thing, that, you know, they live in fear. They're scared of the world that they know, that they see is falling apart. They're scared to step into new waters because they don't know what it's about. They're scared of becoming a lightweight worker just in case it's the devil and trickery because this church is screaming so loud. So, you know, there's a lot of fear out there. It doesn't matter if you're just looking for love, or you're just looking to be happy, or you're just a bit sad. All of it is fear. And if you're not giving your mind what it usually wants, like a cigarette, you know, it's going to ask you in other ways for what it wants. It's going to demand it like a naughty child. So we've just got to pay attention and hold the space.
And just to tie those two things in together before I come to you, David, it did occur to me whether that mass witchcraft ritual was in fact planted in there, you know, by the sort of, I don't know, powers that be, deliberately to divide and rule kind of thing. And also, if you knew that the light workers and people who were kind of doing this woo-woo stuff were holding this high vibration, you'd want to destabilize them in some way. I'm just talking, you know, so this is me getting into conspiracy theories now. Pretty dangerous water.
High vibration.
Yeah, can I just say something? When Paul was talking, and when Stephanie was talking as well, I suddenly had a thought that hadn't dawned on me before, and I just wonder if I could share it.
Yeah.
About it, because it might relate to the whole thing that we're discussing, all the different bits of it. And that is, there's a wonderful book called The Master and His Emissary, which is a book about the binodal brain, the left brain and the right brain. And the book itself is binodal. The first half of the book describes the neuroscience of the left-right hemisphere. The second half of the book is an overview of the entire breadth of Western magical tradition and philosophy, from academia up to Freud, but through the lens of the left and right brain. So ancient philosophers had ideas about things, but they were never facts. They were ideas. So every idea was written down and it wasn't given a value judgment. So, you know, the idea of the heliocentric solar system was put forward 200 BC, but it wasn't considered to be a fact until Copernicus and Galileo. So there were these ideas, and everyone's ideas were just floating about. And the Age of Reason, which kind of really got going from Galileo and so forth, Descartes, etc., has kind of meant that everything's become micro-tuned and fact-based. And what seems to be happening is almost as if the right brain is now having a resurgence. You know, the right brain is chaos and its dreams and its illusions and its fantasy and its imagination. And it's got nothing to do with hard facts, whereas the left brain, as you know, is all analytical and fact-based. So maybe that's what's happening. Maybe after centuries of the age of reason and the left brain becoming more dominant about things, the right brain is saying, hold on a minute, now that Neptune's going through Pisces, the right brain is now kind of resurging up, but that means that people are being swept away by emotions that they can't necessarily identify or figure out. Like I wrote a poem just before the Brexit vote that the government had kind of made us schizophrenic, because not once, as far as I know, I don't know anyone who actually knew the absolute details of the implications of voting Remain or Leave. You know, the legality of it, the consequences were far beyond my comprehension. So the only thing I could do was go in a ballot box and go by the feeling I had in my tummy. And that meant that I was voting on an intuition instead of voting on something to do with being informed. And as far as I know, everybody was doing that. So the government forced us to do a right brain election, which is a very strange thing to do, because they didn't give us enough information to actually make an informed thing. And I just, what both Paul and Steffi were saying just reminded me of that. I'd check it out, McGilchrist, The Master and His Emissary. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Richard, did you want to talk?
That shake-up that's going on between what's real and what's fake is, as David was saying, very interestingly, kind of challenging what we use as a reference point. Robert Bly used to say, go back to the oldest possible authority. But when we're talking about facts in quotation marks, if we're responsible and we get that this is our universe, it's not a question of what is true, it's a question of what's useful. And for me to pay attention to gravity helps me not to fall over a lot, for instance. I have to kind of pay attention to what appear to be facts. But if you go to deeper things, like, for instance, the idea of biblical inerrancy, you know, everything in the Bible is true, that the world was created on October the 2nd, 4004, which was the theory of Archbishop Usher in the 18th century, most rational people would say, what a load of nonsense. I'd say approach that with caution, because it's actually not a useful idea. Because if we deny fossils and we're using fossil fuel, we're very, very confused. And if you deny the Darwinian, the outcome of the Enlightenment, the 18th century French Enlightenment, Diderot, Voltaire, those guys, and the Darwinian revolution, which basically says a thing is itself and not another thing, which is actually an Aristotelian idea. If we get too rigorously into that, we get equally confused than if we have a multiplicity of possibilities. So if we're responsible, it's a question of what's useful. And if we look at the world, we choose to look at the world in a rational, scientific kind of a way, what we end up with is, you know, Zoom and remote controlled television and fiber optics. But that doesn't make it necessarily any more true than whether or not the world was created in 4004 BC. It's a question of what is useful. And as leaders, what we have to do is to be prepared to take that step.
I also think that we've got a couple of things going on here. A lot of the things that we all see in life, by the time we see them, they're already well into not even the cause, it's the effect. We look at them as the cause, but the cause is actually way back into the minds of the individuals, all of us, as we're thinking things, as we're feeling things, as we're manifesting. So by the time we see something happen, that's already the effect. But another thing that might be nice to look at is if you get a whirlpool of water and it's been swirling in one direction for a very long time or a short time, the force is very strong. Now, we've been asking for help for such a long time, and we're working on those levels where we're gaining help. So if you put a stick in, it's going to take a lot of effort to turn the water the other way. But before it even begins to turn, you've got a heck of a lot of choppiness, and even when it looks still, all the currents are whirling, swirling underneath in all directions before on the surface you actually do begin to see that actually things are turning. So isn't that also what we're experiencing at the moment? It's both of these different polarities working in opposition.
But doesn't that go back to the point of go with the flow?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Universal spiral is going this way, and then deciding, oh no, I don't like that. I want to make it go this way.
But not getting caught up in the feelings and the emotions, being able to stay still enough within yourself to know that it's only change, it's only a symptom, and everything is pretend. It's all pretend. Everything will pass. The best and the worst passes. And once you realize that, and once you realize that you're in your power and nothing can harm you, absolutely nothing can harm you, then you can just stay in your space and wait for it to pass, and then pop your head up when it's safer.
Beverley, you wanted to talk, and then we'll come to Paul and maybe Michael. If you
in a game of chess, when you're playing chess, I'm not really a chess player, but you have to think like 7-10 steps ahead of the other person you're playing with. And sometimes some people are better at thinking a few steps ahead of others. So when we have leaders or people in power who are able to think 10, 20 steps ahead, it's good if in the 10, 20 steps ahead, they're creating a vortex of joy and happiness. It becomes not so good if it creates a vortex of chaos and unhappiness. So it's like, so when I think of a game of chess, I think of life. Some of us are very good at planning and preparing, and others are not. There are those who are followers, and there are those who just don't do anything. They don't care. They just sit and they observe. So the choice again is, are you going to train yourself to be maybe 5, 6, 10 steps ahead as you think about your own personal individual life, and then the collective and collective consciousness? Are you willing to do that? Or are you willing to go with the flow and just see what happens? I think for what we're creating here, all of us in our own individual lives, we are living in the now. And at the same time, in that, with the game of chess, we're thinking a few steps ahead. And that's why we can all come together and have a discussion with our various points of view that make valid sense. Again, depending on what angle and how each debate or statement can be made into a debate, or even written into 10, 20 chapters in a book. So it's looking at what we're saying and looking at life as a game of chess. Paul?
Yes, and the discussion has moved inevitably round to politics and political situation and so on. And it occurred to me, like I was saying about media, that we can't fight with the existing system, but we can create something else. And in politics, it seems, you know, the whole thing is set up so that we're actually focusing on the theatre of politics, of two-party politics. And the whole thing is a show. Because the real action is going on behind the screen, and you have Putin saying recently in a speech, we're going to change how we do it. We used to tell everybody a pile of bullshit and then go and make the decisions in the back room and not tell anybody about it. And he said, I'm not going to do that anymore. Going to actually tell the truth about how it goes on. But the problem is, for us, is that this so-called democracy is really not democratic in the least. And as you say, with things like creating a situation where you're asking people to intuitively choose things that have some rational arguments behind them. So what are we going to do? How are we going to move into democracy? And the Native Americans and many shamanic peoples and the Buddhists, in the way they run their monasteries, have a perfect model of circles. And where the movement comes from in the center is the enlightened beings visioning the future. And this is, in native tradition, the job of the elder wise women, to vision the future, and for the men to help the women manifest this dream. And it's done through circles where everybody is empowered because they're sitting in a circle of their peers, making real decisions about the gardening, the finance, the marketing, the whatever, because that's their circle. And the circle for dreaming the future is the wise women, and the men's circle is for something else. And this kind of politics, where nobody is more important than anybody else, all ideas are equally important. It's just that the energy may not be going with your particular idea today. And we've got these tools. It's just we're not practiced in it. But we have been very brainwashed into party politics and this is not going to really make our dreams come true. I'm ready for something radical.
Yeah. Well, that does beg the question of who really controls what goes on, because while we're looking to governments and saying they're the ones who've got the power, I don't believe that. I think the true power lies with all of us, the creators, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the artists, that have the true power to move people. Just a movie like La La Land, I mean, that's incredibly influential, creating a movie that can shift people's energy. And it's quite interesting, going back to your point, Stephanie, about Donald Trump running things like he's the CEO of a business. I mean, if you dished out the Oscars based on money, it would have won all the awards because it was the biggest grossing movie. So that's another question is, do we run things by what money things make and the bottom line, which is what Donald Trump does? Or do we look at the wider picture of people, planet, and all the other considerations?
Well, I think that emotion plays a massive role in the movement of people. Like you were saying, that La La Land is just a film, but it's more than just a film. It's an oasis, it's an escape, it's an inspiration, it's lots of things. And all art seems to be like that. I mean, there's a piece of footage of Winston Churchill back in 1944 being kind of doorstepped by a journalist because they've just approved some money to go to the Arts Council in war just before D-Day. And this journalist said, do you think it's appropriate to kind of put money into the arts in a time of war? And he turned around and said, well, what are we fighting for? Mm. And that whole idea of, the joy of civilization is that instead of chasing your food or being chased by something because it wants to eat you, is that you can create time in which you can allow the best of humanity to flourish through art, music, and design, and things that can kind of hold people, And so I think that, I wrote a piece on Facebook about the technicalities of how an abused person can avoid love, because if their brain has an equation of like love equals pain when they're a child, then any loving relationships will potentially mean that they can become exposed to danger and hurt. And hardly anybody looked at it. So I rewrote it as a poem, and loads of people looked at it. So the left brain version of, a phenomena wasn't really interesting for people, but the right brain version of the same phenomena suddenly kind of captured people and inspired people. Mm. So yes, Neptune's definitely in Pisces.
Mm. Michael, yeah. The funny thing is as well that what do we fight for? We fight for our freedom. We fight to be able to use our time and our life as we wish. But again, that's the difference between being awake and asleep. You choose different things depending on what level you're on. So it's also about looking at yourself, what you expect from your life, what makes you happy, what makes you feel love. Aren't we actually trying to help people come back into that place of love where they realize love and life are more, that they're more than they ever dreamed, more than they could ever imagine?
Yeah. Michael, do you want to come on?
Well, we're going back into the dream time, back to the feminine, back to kind of really good white magic. I did a lovely ritual yesterday on Hampstead Heath to evoke the waters of the world. And the whole theme is about sacred waters, is the heart, is the emotion. It's about feeling the emotion. So that's what I want to say. Also, we had the end of Standing Rock. And that protest. And in one sense, it wasn't an entirely rational process at all. It was way too late. But the whole Standing Rock thing was kind of a symbolic stand of the ancient tribes, the shamanic roots, the Red Indians, the Sioux. And it was about them expressing their resentment about past injustice, about feeling dispossessed, and like asserting their will and getting global support for their campaign. So the campaign is over, and it was maybe like way too late, but a sense in which it brought together the emotional issue of standing up for what you believe in, for the sacred waters of the world. And this year is all about going back to those old-fashioned pathways, meditation, nature, the land, the feminine path, the meandering path is the true path, we could say. And there'll be kind of all kinds of Neptunian disasters happening this year, and you know, Trump will be quite embarrassing as usual. But it's really about us asserting our dignity and our purpose and taking a stand for our true core beliefs. And now our true beliefs are being tested, what we really believe in on a deep emotional level. Not being clever, not just being fashionable, but what we really believe in. It's about, you know, Pisces says, look at the whole last 2,000 years, and where do you stand? Are you a stand for the divine feminine, for the arts, for creativity, or you get lost in day-to-day news and propaganda and get upset by what, you know, Trump did for breakfast? It's about going back to basics, I would say. So, you know, Neptune, Pisces, new moon, eclipse, fantastic. Just carry on.
Okay, let's just have some last words from everyone, just whether that's a summing up or an intention. Richard?
I remember Ben Elton saying, talking about the contrast between science and the arts. He said, we're approaching the time when we have 10,000 people who are able to blow up the world and no one who knows why not to. And I think we are at a time now where we have to focus on the good. We need to take responsibility for defining that ourselves. And being informed is a very good part of that, but we have to make the choice. If, you know, we're on the side of the angels, keep focusing on the angels.
Stephanie?
I think that we've just got to remember that we're working with and for the I am, part of the universe itself. We have to remember that the things that we're creating here physically will fall away, and the only thing that we will take with us is the work that we've done on our soul, which actually will set the pace for our next life, whether we stay in the realms of unseen or whether we birth again. So it's again taking us back to that higher vibration, the vibration of the soul, to really see and recognize what we're creating, what we stand for, what we want to be remembered for. Okay,
thank you. David?
Yeah, I'd definitely go with what Stephanie said about, you know, creating things for our soul to carry forward. I think the only thing you can do amongst all the chaos of it and bewilderment is just be kind. You know, be kind to yourself, be kind to as many life forms as you can. You can't live a life without harming something. Every time we breathe, we kill. But just damage limitation and just do one's best to be as kind as possible. You know, I think that's it.
Paul?
Well, I want to thank you, Rachel, for another platform, and interesting that it's revelations that came up for you. This is great that here's a platform to reveal, hopefully, through discussion, more of the fundamentals that one of the speakers just mentioned, is that of truth, beauty, kindness, compassion as the foundation for communication. That we're doing it for those reasons. And if it isn't true and honest and useful and manifesting what we really want, then it doesn't need to be there. Yeah. And so thank you very much for creating this new platform on this new foundation, and for inviting me. Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone there for an interesting morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And Beverley, let's just end on you.
In the alchemical transformation of your true self, your true soul, the alchemical transformation of your true self, your true soul, you go to the energy of now, where you find the reality of your life. You come back home to yourself. From that home to yourself, step forward within the energy of now and manifest the greatness of you. And in the combination of the other souls around you, create something really worth living for. So you can say, my legacy was leaving something beautiful here on earth.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming on today. Thank you, Richard Ashworth, Beverley Toks Coker, Paul Terrell, David Charles Rowan, Michael Day, and Stephanie J. King. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you.